Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here is the host of The Pleasure Zone, sex, relationship, and intimacy coach and holistic health practitioner, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. If you're wondering, am I a pleasure seeker? If you've tapped into this show, the chances are you are seeking something different in your life that's probably pleasure. You might be one of the people who I'm going to be speaking to directly today who have gone through trauma, whether it's sexual trauma, trauma that has been anything from, maybe you've lived through wars, maybe you've gone through a lot of people dying, maybe you've had a lot of verbal abuse or religious abuse. There are so many different things that create trauma, and we don't always resolve it. And I know personally that I have I've invested probably the last 30 years of my life to allowing my body to find ways to release trauma and then rewiring my brain so that I don't have the same thought patterns going over and over again that would be re-traumatizing. A lot of times people will do one or the other. They might do some work on their thought patterns and then their body holds the trauma, or they might do some work on getting their body to let go of the trauma, but their brain holds thought patterns that those thought patterns will continue to re-traumatize them because their thoughts are constantly running either unconsciously or consciously that tell the story. And your body doesn't know the difference between the story that you're telling yourself and the actual experience that you went through. I watch a lot of people who have gone through pretty extreme traumas retell their stories, and they either are completely detached from it as if they're telling a stranger's story, or they're so in it that they're re-traumatizing themselves through the experience, mostly because they haven't learned how to reframe things and then reclaim their space in their body. And I know I've been one of those people. I've been there. I've had multiple different kinds of trauma in my life, as we all have, and we don't always all recognize what those are. I have yet to meet a person who has not gone through at least one kind of trauma in their life. I've met a lot of people who have gone through extreme repetitive traumas, who have been, sexually abused and molested repeatedly their whole lives, had violence in different ways show up. And, sometimes what happens is there's like this scale or comparison with trauma, like, well, your trauma was worse than mine, so, I don't have anything compared to you. Or sometimes people might lose an animal, and that is more traumatizing to them than having like their entire community die in a war. Uh, Everybody experiences it in a different way, relates to it in a different way, and then also processes it in a different way. And our bodies are going to process it in many different ways. And we need to be able to integrate all of those in a holistic way. So today, what we're going to be talking about is healing through pleasure and reclaiming your body. It's your body. It's something that you got in this lifetime, and it's something for you to be able to take ownership of, to acknowledge that you have the rights over your body and you get to have the say about what happens to it. And no matter what the trauma is, I think what I've noticed is that there is like a very kind of like underlying theme to everything that it comes to down to trauma. And one of those things is that whether you've lost somebody that you loved, whether there was sexual abuse, whether there was verbal abuse, whether there was a war that you were involved in somehow, all of those situations are usually things that you feel like you have no say or control in, and there's been no ability to say no. You can learn to do is learn how to say no right from, and you can take this in whatever way you like. We're just going to give the neutral term. Say no from your genitals, right? So just say no and own it from a place of that creative source energy. And when you do, and I've done this, and I realized recently that I said this to a friend of mine who was going into a bit of a sad story, and I said no from my place of authority, which is also like, it's kind of like when all your chakras align and the energy just comes out and you're like, no. And you can see how that energy can sound like aggressive, but it's also very there. It's clear. It's also very demanding, and there's no denying the no. So if anything you get out of this show today is that part of learning, relearning, because I think we're innately born to be able to experience pleasure, because whilst do clitorises exist, I mean, 8,000 nerve endings for pleasure only. I do think we're born to have pleasure, but also like we've been trained out of that. And how do we reclaim that? And one of the things I think we need to learn how to do is learn how to say no with authority, mean it, have the energy behind it, and use it as a tool to be able to actually step into more pleasure. So know what you desire and be able to say yes to the things that you would like, and the definite no's to the things that you are not choosing. If you're giving wishy-washy no's and the energy is like, well, no, I don't know, it's both confusing to you and your body, and also to whoever is supposed to be receiving that. So if you can really dig deep into your being, get really present, feel your feet, take those deep breaths and really like get into that body. And one fun breathing technique that I like to do to get into my body and like relax my body. And I'm going to give you guys some tips and tools throughout this whole episode, but play around with me on this. My nose is a little stuffy today, so this might sound more aggressive than usual, but I like to breathe in for 8 through my nose really aggressively, and then breathe out really aggressively. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So it's like a, and then out. And what that starts to do is it starts to reset your nervous system. And you can get fun and silly with that. Like you can breathe in from like the depths of your toes, like sit, feet on the ground, stand, get your body connected, and you breathe in and then out. And your lips will start to flap. They might start to feel tingly, and then you might feel silly. But you know what? If it brings up laughter, fantastic. It's shifting energy. If it's making your lips tingly, it's actually going to activate different parts of your nervous system to help your body calm down. I don't know if you've ever seen horses do this, but horses, when they'll sometimes breathe out and they'll like that, just like a horse breath, right? So you can breathe in. That also calms down your nervous system. So when we get our nervous systems calm, when we can get present and we can be able to deliver those no's from a place of authority, we can activate certain things in ourselves that can be such an invitation to other people to be able to know who they are, to be able to invite themselves into also creating clear boundaries so that they not only know who they are, know what they like, feel like it's okay and safe to say no. I really love when people around me know that they can say no to me. It actually makes me really happy that they don't try to what's the word for it? Maybe be people pleasers with me. I'd rather somebody say no to me from a place of authority and not feel like they have to explain or define or apologize for saying no. Just no. Ah, thank you. I love that you said no. I love that you said no and you honored you. And I love that you were able to say that from a place that is true for you. And I also love when people can say yes with total authority and confidence and know that their yes counts, that their yes means something to them. So both of those are really good practices to start to play with, just to be able to get into the energy of what and and like when somebody asks you, do you want to try this or do you want to try that? When it comes to pleasure seeking and pleasure play, when you truly know your no's and you truly know your yeses, and you can go over to my website, milicajelenic.com, milicajelenic.com. And on there, I have a do's, don'ts, maybes list, which is similar to like a yes, no, maybes list. And then you can get really clear on what are your yeses, what are your no's, what are your maybes. Look at that list. And under your no category, if there's nothing on my ideas that I've put on there, go and find some things that are going to be a clear no for you. And you can play with that in your own way, in your own time too. And sometimes even seeing yourself in the mirror say no to certain things can also bring up some stuff to help you become more aware. How do you look when you say no? How do you feel when you say no? What is it like being witness saying no? Witnessing yourself say no is also really good. I'm a really big fan of using mirrors for work, because a lot of times we don't see ourselves and we don't really know what do we look like when we say that. So we don't want to say that. We don't want to, it's just a form of observation. So get in front of the mirror, get that list. What are the things on your nose? Say, for example, on your nose list might be, no, I'm not interested in having somebody put a hot metal rod in my anus. Cool. No. Well, it's actually not even on my list, guys, but I mean, you can go extreme and put that on your list to be like, no, I do not want a hot rod shoved up my anus. Cool. We know that. We know that. And you can feel the energy in it. And you can hear when somebody says it with authority. No, I don't. No, no, no. Can be a lot of fun. Practice your nose. Then see how people respond to you when you, in that first part of experimenting and playing with no, how people respond to you. They might have never heard you say the word no in your whole life. You might have been people pleasing your whole entire life, or saying no's, but then changing your mind because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. Say no, mean no, back up your no. And you can say no about simple things, right? So you can say no about things like, would you like some water? No, and be okay with it. Because I have even been, I was raised by parents who were divorced at the age of 4. My parents got divorced, and on my dad's side, my dad is Serbian, and so Balkan to kind of generalize. And the Balkan culture is very much about inviting you into their home, being very hospitable, but hospitable in a way that if you say no to something, they're highly offended. So as a child, we would travel around. It was the 80s, everybody visited each other. And we would go to people's houses. And by like the second or third house, I was so stuffed full of food that my body couldn't handle that I would be practically crying when we would land at the third or fourth house. And I'd be offered smoked meat and I didn't want to eat any more of it. And then I would be like, no, I don't want any. And I'd start bawling because I didn't feel like I had any say or any control over it. And then they would get all, oh, super, super manipulative about it. Oh, come on. Oh, you're so skinny. Oh, you should eat. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Blah. And then for me as a child, I'm feeling like I don't have authority because these people, it's their home. You're supposed to respect people in their home. And I would eat things that made me ill. I was at the hospital. I was at the doctor's all the time when I was little because I always had stomach aches. I was eating stuff constantly that I didn't either like and I didn't feel like I could say no to. And there is a big belief that it's disrespectful to say no or to refuse things, but it's not. And so the first time I actually felt the authority that I could say no to somebody balking, and they got like taken aback and offended. I was like, no, they got pushy. They got oh, come on, why not? Blah, 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 blah. No. And they just like stood back. They actually didn't even know how to respond. And it was about a situation of inviting me to somebody's house and I didn't feel comfortable. And I was like, no, I'm not I'm not, no. And it was a very interesting reaction from the people that I refused to go to their home. And it actually changed the entire dynamic of our relationship. And I have not seen them since, which is a-okay. So we're going to head to uh, our next commercial break, our first commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some tips and tools. We started with no, which is a really good one to play with. And we're going to play with some other tips and tools on how to come into more pleasure through healing. And part of that healing is saying no. So when we come back, we're going to head off to our commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to continue this episode of The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. We are on a journey today, a healing journey. We are looking at healing trauma through pleasure. So one of the things we talked about in the first segment was using a very, very specific tool called no. No, 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 no. You can have fun with it. If you're not feeling confident in no, just have fun with it, just like I did just there. Like, no, 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 no. Make a little song, get the words out. Practice playing with that word because it is one that is so often and commonly ignored by people when you say it, and also often one that we don't use enough. Enough. We might have tried to use it, might have gotten ignored. We might have tried attempting to use it and then convinced ourselves out of it because we're people pleasers. So how do we become people pleasers? Part of that is a trauma response, 99.9% of the time. And why that is. So when you look at the nervous system and what happens after trauma is oftentimes bodies go into one that you guys are probably familiar with, fight or flight. So that is when your sympathetic nervous system kicks into high gear. And it's like, woohoo, we're ready to take over and make sure that you survive. And one of the things that happens when your body goes into fight or flight is that things like anxiety kick in. Your body is on high alert. And then also it'll increase your heart rate. It sometimes will increase it'll do a lot of things physiologically to your body as a result of your body being on high alert. Also, your body doesn't heal when it's on high alert. Your body doesn't heal also when it's on parasympathetic overdrive. I'm kind of simplifying the terminology here. It's like I don't know if you guys want the scientific terminology. Let me know in comments if you like prefer when I talk from more of a scientific with like using scientific terminology, or if you prefer when I try and like talk as if it's like something you'll understand, simplifying the science terminology. Let me know. I'm just curious. I can do either. So we got the body's going into sympathetic overdrive. It is now kicking in high gear, and your sympathetic nervous system is going, we need to keep you alive. So we're going to keep that blood pumping to the heart, make sure you're alive. It's going to start to move things away from basically all it's trying to do is keep your body alive. So certain things too, like digestive processes, will kind of get to the wayside. Sleep often gets interfered with because your body is now on high alert. It thinks everything, it doesn't know if it's safe or not. So it thinks everything is potential danger. Those are some of the basic things that happen. Then you can also have your body go into like more of a response that is a parasympathetic overdrive where depression kicks in. It's like your body kind of starts to be, I would say, to the point where it's been overly traumatized, zero stress regulators going on in your body, and your body is burnout exhausted. So when your body is in that state, you usually are not all that responsive, and you might feel like you just want to give up. So a lot of people are fighters more naturally, and they'll go into fight or flight first. Some people will just drop and give up like immediately because they don't have, you might hear words like, I don't have the fight in me. That is kind of like, my parasympathetic nervous system isn't going to even assist me here. So what happens too is you can kind of be flopping back and forth from one to the other on a highly regular basis. You can be in fawn, which fawn is like when you fawn over something. So fawning over someone or something is that where you're, what was the terminology I recently used? It's like where you're people pleasing. That's what fawn is. And so when you're on high alert, you're walking on eggshells in your house, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be safe, I'm not going to be safe. What do I need to do to make crazy person happy so that they won't hurt me, so that I can survive another day? And then you go to bed and you're like so freaking stressed that you don't sleep. And then, you're so freaking stressed that, like, so for me, what happened, I was living with a bit of a crazy person for a few years. And then I met my husband, who was such a gift, and my nervous system calmed almost within like a few weeks of meeting my husband, which is wild because most of my life I'd been on fight or flight, or I'd been on freeze. I was just completely frozen. After my body had been violated, I'm going to say it that way so that we don't get whatever. So and I was 25 at the time. It's been 25 years. And if I really wanted to sit with that and feel it, my body would still start to cry because it's sad. I also choose to not let it run my life. And I'm aware of it. So those traumas, in that trauma, when my body was violated, I went to frozen. I was like non-functional. I was kind of just lethargic in bed, didn't want to eat, didn't want to breathe, didn't want to any of it. I just wanted to die and disappear. It was brutal. It was brutal. And I wasn't even at home. I was in another country. I was in a country where that kind of activity didn't even seem to matter to people, like it was normal. So it was a very hard time. So when I came back and I started in with my therapy, and I had therapists that were helping me go through it. I did have a therapist that wasn't so great, and I moved away from her to somebody who actually worked with me and didn't put the blame on me. That was good. So I started to work with people who understood that my body needed to get the trauma out, as well as reframing my thoughts, moving the energy, and also getting to a place where I could feel confident with no's. And I had some pretty in-depth therapy that was using things like sounding, which was like primal screaming. It was so good. I'm a big fan of primal screaming. So when people come to my workshops, they also get to experience things like primal screaming. It's part of my training as well. And there's something so uh, freaking uh, I don't know, enlivening. It gives you life, invigorating. That's a word. It's so invigorating to do a really good primal scream. And your body sometimes goes into tremors, and sometimes it lets go of things, and sometimes you're like, who am I now? It's great. I love it. It's not the only thing I do in workshops, but it is one of the things. So if you're ever interested in coming to one of my workshops, I have half-day workshops, full-day workshops, 2-day weekend workshops, and I'm looking at potentially having even longer ones, like 3 to 7-day workshops. But it's something that I think people do need to build up and have some work with me in advance before they jump into like a 7-day or a 3-day workshop. So primal screaming, super helpful. And so looking at the nervous system, I'm going to jump back to that. I know I go on tangents, guys, and talk about myself and my healing and all that jazz, but I want you guys to know that there are some really cool things out there that you can use. So it's not necessarily about me telling my stories, but letting you know there's a lot of things out there that can be actually fun in a way. It's like healing can be fun. It doesn't have to be traumatic and tragic. And I'm a fan of adding play and fun to the healing so that healing is an invitation rather than like something that feels like drudgery. And healing can feel like drudgery at times. So as much as we can bring in the fun, the better it is so that we keep choosing it because our nervous systems need it. So you're going to fight or flight. Your body doesn't know how to regulate. We did talk about that first breath work in the first segment. And let's play with that again. So it's that just like breathing in and then, you know, my lips aren't doing it right now, but like pretend like you're a horse. Let that out. Blow it out, make the noises, whatever you want to do. But it is fun when your lips do flap a bit like a horse. So have fun with that. And get your nervous system regulated. Breath work is free. I mean, you could take courses in it, absolutely, and you're paying for that. Cool. Yes, for sure. And you could take workshops in it. Yes. And then there are some simple ones you can just do on your own as a daily practice. Breathing in for even 5 and breathing out for 5 is great. It's a regulating breath. Breathing in for 8, out for 8 is a more of a deeper breath. And I'm a big fan of doing like those breaths out that make noise because our bodies actually hold on to a lot of different noises and noises we haven't been able to express. I know that even I probably even did this to my child was like, sometimes there's like excessive amount of like noise that children are just like screaming and you're like, can you please just quiet down? And so sometimes we quiet down those noises, even though the body wants to make noise to regulate. And having the space and permission to do that is phenomenal. So whether you're going to a practitioner to have that space to be able to regulate and get those noises out that you were never allowed to do, or whether you're doing it on your own time, please make those noises. So whether you're just even breathing in, it's like, ah. I know a lot of people who get really annoyed when people breathe out like aggressively. I see it as a like, good job, you are letting stuff out. And yes, it can be annoying to some. So if you are somebody who gets annoyed by other people making sounds, probably my workshops aren't for you. But if you're okay with it and you want to make some noises too, awesome. Come on by. And sometimes it's good to look at like, why does that bother you? Is that bothering you because you weren't allowed and given permission to make noise? So if you had been allowed to give permission to make noise, would you feel better? When I started to give myself permission to make those deep out breath noises and they can even start to sound orgasmic, like, ah, Like I have an amazing client who's every time she gets on the table, her body goes into the orgasmic size. It is the cutest. She's like, I feel so good. And she'll just be like, oh, and her body undulates and goes into like these amazing sighs of relief and stress release. And it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful thing. So when our bodies do that and we're given permission to do that, and we give ourselves permission to do that, it is so good for letting out the trauma, for regulating your nervous system. And then we got to retrain the brain, right? And I'm a really big fan of things like EMDR for retraining your thought patterns. I am not an EMDR practitioner, and really good EMDR practitioners are also psychotherapists or psychologists. They have extensive training. So if you are looking for EMD therapists, I would look at somebody who is either a psychotherapist or is and has additional EMDR training. Don't just go for the person who's gone for that weekend workshop and decides that they're doing EMDR. That is not your best choice. Other trauma related work that I'm actually currently studying is something called family constellations. And I'm a big fan of that. It kind of incorporates things like Gestalt therapy in order to be able to navigate the space of what's going on in your life. And I'll talk about that more later on, as it's like a 4-year program for me. So I'm only in my first few months, but as I learn more, I will share that with you guys. And if you are curious about that, there are a lot of practitioners out there as well. Find ones that are well studied, who have practiced and have gone to the work themselves. So part of my study is I'm going to get to go to those workshops. And when I do, I will update you guys on how that is for me. I am forever looking and seeking for new practices, new things to add to my practice, because I feel like we need multiple different, all these modalities exist because we certainly could use them. Now, I don't think I'm going to become a practitioner of every modality on the planet. I'm not going to live that long. However, the ones that really intrigue me, I absolutely love going in and diving in on that. I am over my break time, so we're going to head to our next commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Today we are seeking pleasure, as per always. And today we're looking at healing trauma through pleasure. So first I wanted to give you guys a brief on some real basics, like learning to say no. And then we talked a little bit about the nervous system and how it reacts to certain things, right? So we got the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, gives us fight or flight. And then we got the parasympathetic nervous system giving us freeze, and then we got these combinations with fawn, and there's other ones. By the way, like, people are always adding stuff to this, so we're just going to keep it simple for this. So what we want to do is regulate our nervous system in order to have pleasure. What? Yeah. So even when you're playing with things that are like BDSM, you can still have your nervous system regulated first, even though you might be going into a situation that kicks in your fight or flight, which is cool. And, you know, you can also use BDSM for wellness. That's a whole other conversation. And what we want to do is bring our bodies to a place of calm. Why? Because calm is where we heal. So in order to get our bodies to heal, we need to be able to feel calm, connected, and part of community. I know those 3 C's are really important. Being calm, being connected, and being part of community are actually 3 of the things that when your parasympathetic nervous system is calm and your body is not in fight or flight or freeze, that you start to be able to relate to others, you have clear boundaries with others, you are able to create connections that others see, and your communication will also be honored. So learning those no's are really helpful in creating those boundaries and being able to create connections and be able to, you know, stand in your authority in front of others as well. And every once in a while in life, you might find that you walk into somebody that you're like, oh, now I remember, that's something I'm going to continue to work on, is standing in my authority. I recently had a reminder of that, where for like the last probably 20 something years, I was like feeling pretty clear in my authority. Well, especially the last 10 years, since 12 years since meeting my husband. He is such an invitation to allow you to be in your authority that it's like, he's actually more comfortable when I am feeling in my authority than when I'm not. He's like, something's off. You're not being your authority self. And he doesn't use those words, but he's like, something's off. When I'm off, the whole house is off, apparently. So if you can be in your authority, you can be an invitation to others to also relax, but then you can relax, and it's like this reciprocal thing that happens. So if you aren't being that, then you're going to create like an energy that's like a static, and it kind of feels awkward, and people will feel awkward around you. And then there's like this kind of misunderstanding around who is the authority or not, or anyway, it creates confusion. And I recently had a reminder of that, which was actually really good for me, so that I could go, okay, I really thought I had that one down, and now I get to work on that again. That's the beauty of healing, guys. So healing is not, it's not a destination, it's a lifestyle. Healing is that thing that you choose to do so that you can invite yourself to be like more and more of yourself every day. And healing is something that will often remind you when things will come up, triggers, we'll call them, will come up, to allow you to remember what still needs to be worked on. And it might not be with everyone, it might be with certain energies. So what I learned was that there are certain people who I had seen as more authoritative than me, where I was still questioning my authority in front of them. And I was like, wait a second, I need to get really clear on this. I hadn't been around people like that for a while, so I forgot that, or I didn't realize I still had that. But once I went, wait a second, I can be my authority, and also to be aware of when other people are authority in their authority, and that might not match what you know, and that's okay too. So that's a whole other question and conversation too there. So why do we want to heal in order to have pleasure? Well, if our nervous systems are happy and they're calm, and your body, and you're starting to feel like you're in your body will start to respond differently to things, right? If you're not in fight or flight, then when somebody goes to touch you, if somebody touches you when you're in fight or flight, your first response might be to react, or like you might get your shoulders up. You might want to punch. You might want to respond in a way that's aggressive when you're in constant fight or flight. If you're in froze, somebody could touch you and you're completely disconnected and you leave your body and you're like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. When you're calm and connected and somebody touches you and you can be present with somebody else's presence, what a gift. That's where dynamic healing comes from. conversation we have when we talk about somatic stuff, somatic breath work, somatic body work, all these things under the somatic umbrella. Somatic just means, soma is Greek for body. Somatic means relating to the body. And the body as something that's like distinctly different from the mind, because the mind is more psych, right? So that's the mind. And then we have soma, the body. And when we're healing our bodies, which is something that you often don't see in traditional like therapy, like psychotherapy or counseling or anything like that, there tends to be not a lot of conversation around the body, if any. However, if you work with somebody who does a lot of integrative work and they're working with things like somatic breath work or movement or anything like that, then you will have more of a holistic approach to your healing. And I'm a big fan of looking at your body as a whole, your mind, your body, your spirit, all of them need to be invited into more, right? To be able to let go of the trauma. Why do we want to heal the spirit? To me, I want to heal that spirit because what if we do reincarnate? Do I want to bring that into another life? Not really. How do we do that? Well, a lot of different belief systems have a lot of different ways of doing that. And one of the top ways is through meditation. Keep that simple. Terminology is like people will meditate and that will start to work on your karma. Also, just looking at your actions and then correcting them, apologies and changing things and working on reconciling different things as well. And so that can work as well. So we definitely want to include the body rather than ignore the body. And then we can start to invite pleasure in. How do we invite pleasure in? Well, now that your touch is not going to be a thing that makes you freak out, you can start with very simple touch with your partner, if you have a partner, or with your own self. I would start personally with my own self regardless, because that is the practice that I did for my own self as well, is that I started with putting my hands on my own body as a healing practice. So I was trained in Reiki like 20, I'll just give you a year. I was trained in Reiki in 1997. So I've been doing energy work for almost 3 decades. And so every day I do that on myself. And so I would start with working on myself, hands wherever they would land, and let my body receive that. And then as I started to heal the sexual trauma, what I wanted to do was invite my body to be able to be touched and not have a whole bunch of images flooding in that reminded me of the violation, right? So I would just put my hand on my vulva and just be there. And then as the images would flash up, I would either breathe through them. And at one point I would turn the images around I would consciously choose to turn the images around in my mind of what I perceived, because for me the experience was so out of body. It was like I watched it as a movie. So I could have that same kind of perspective and then switch it around, where instead of feeling like I was being held down, I turned it around, I empowered myself. I had I took all these skills that I developed and I flipped it and I got out of the room, right? And that was like super empowering. Well, I did a few things to the dudes before I left the room and felt very satisfied, like ripping off testicles and things like that. So that was like very satisfactory. And it wasn't about, I didn't do that in real life. I didn't like go attack them, but I needed to switch the energy, feel empowered. And I don't know what happened to them in real life, because they are in another country and I don't even know them. They were complete strangers. So I flipped that around, and then my body could start to receive touch in a way that I didn't like escape every time somebody would go to touch me. It's like the hands would go on certain parts of my body and I would go zip, skip, I was out of there. And if you've ever had a violation of any kind, you might know what I'm talking about. It's like you completely disconnect and you're not there, and like touch will sometimes throw you for a loop. And so getting what we call grounded, so being in your body, is really helpful. noticing your body, being confident that your body is going to be okay. And one of the things you can do is check your environment too. Like, are we good? Are we safe? Breath out, right? So it's really good to check your environment, because a lot of times you could be so stuck in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode that you don't even realize that you're reacting to, it could be a sound in your environment. There could be like a buzzing that's driving you crazy and keeping you on high alert. And until you get calm and quiet enough, you don't realize that that sound is aggravating you. Go turn off the sound. Take a deep breath. Breathe. Let your body feel calm again, and then check, am I safe? And then, so for me, I like to do the breath work. There was a doctor that had a program on this station for a number of years, and he referred to it as the 4-4-8 breath work, which is actually, it's not his breath work, it is a breath work. But what I like to add to that breath work, so you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, and I like to add checking your environment, am I safe? And on my breath out, I will literally say out loud, I am safe. And that helps to also regulate the nervous system. There are also simple ways to like regulate things like anxiety, where, you know, you can put your hand on your your right eye, and then just look up, take some deep breaths, and your body will start to calm down. So there are simple methods. You just want to be able to bring your body to calm. Yeah, so we're going to talk more about different things, how we're going to add more pleasure. We talked about the hand on the genitals as a good start, and like reframing the thoughts in your brain before like really going for anything sexual. Just get your body used to touch. I think it's really important to do this in baby steps, especially if the trauma's been there for a very long time, or even if it's been there a short time. We just want to do it in baby steps to reacclimate yourself to your body, to reacclimate yourself to touch and be safe and feel confident in your yeses and nos, and that you've got your back on this. So we're gonna head to our next commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. So I have a question in the chat room, and the question is, how do we know if our parasympathetic nervous system is not calm? So here's a few things, guys. If you're feeling depressed, and whether you're feeling depressed or you've been diagnosed with depression, your parasympathetic nervous system is not calm. If you have weight gain that doesn't seem to go away no matter what you do, your parasympathetic nervous system is probably not calm. Your cortisol levels will be up. That's going to hold on to fats. It's going to increase certain things like different hormones. Another thing that you might notice is that you have zero motivation. Your body doesn't want to do squat at all the time. So if you are feeling like your parasympathetic nervous system is not calm, and there's a lot of other factors too. If you look up the polyvagal response, there are a lot of really great charts on Google. I'm going to be having a lot of resources on my website over the next few months. So always keep checking back in. I have a bunch of PDFs I'm working on to share with you guys, but I'm really a fan of the polyvagal response. And I think it's really key in looking at these things and like, what are some of the things that people go through when they are in different response modes. And like that burnout factor is really there with parasympathetic nervous system not being calm. So yeah, also sometimes blood pressure will be strange, could be erratic, could be low, could be all kinds of things. So I think it's one of the things to just note that if your parasympathetic nervous system is not calm, one of the things you can do is just start walking. Just get some movement going so that your body um, so can actually start to realize that you're alive. So that's one of the things. It's a really simple tool. I like to walk backwards a lot because it helps align your spine, and you kind of your posture is usually better if you practice it a lot and you keep your head up and you walk backwards, even 10 steps or 100 steps. Your posture will be better. You'll be able to intake more air as well. So that can be really helpful. Then you're breathing deeper. And when you're breathing deeper, what's going to happen? Your body's going to calm down. Posture is really key, actually, to a lot of this. You can see in bodies, if I can see in bodies because of my over 2 decades of training, looking at bodies and working on bodies, that when somebody's posture is off, it actually increases the stress in the body. So if your neck is even off by a bit, your body thinks that it's in a stress, it's like in a stress position. So your head is out, you're almost like in fight mode, like your body is in a position where it's fighting, and it stays there a really long time. It just gets exhausted. So definitely working on posture is really important. If that's something that you want to do and you want to know more about some simple tools about how to do that, I did create a program called Posture for Prosperity. If you'd like to get in on that, I can send links to you. That is going to be available on my website shortly. So you can do a bunch of different things in order to do that. Why we want to do that is because our posture often gets held in position by our fascia, and our fascia is very conscious, and it holds on to all kinds of things, memories. It does hold trauma. It holds emotion. It's wild stuff. Fascia is wild, wild stuff. And as your body changes posture and you start to have the fascia release, all of these different things also emotionally will start to come out of your body. And then you can create new and better posture that then your body will have more ease with holding that. So when your body has ease with holding a new posture, and your posture is more corrected, you're breathing better, you can have that feeling of authority. You can step into your pleasure so much more because you're able to say what you desire. You're able to share that with people, and you're able to do that with yourself, whether that's self-pleasuring or that's pleasuring with a partner. And I realized that you guys might have been looking for some things like go have sex from behind. And that can also be helpful too, because the rocking forward motion, if you're in doggy position, is actually really good for the nervous system too. It's probably why, like for me, I love that position. I find it so incredibly soothing. And so finding different positions for your body sexually that help your body feel soothed. And there are other ones that can help your body feel soothed as well. But if you happen to like doggy style sex, it might be because it's actually incredibly soothing at the same time as arousing to your body. So super healing, right? How do we heal through sex? Well, that's one of them. How do we create more pleasure? We create it on a daily basis by inviting our bodies into it, by noticing when anything that is highly stressful is staying with us, and then doing some simple tools like breath work to get that out of your body, then doing simple movements and stretches to let the fascia let go of it, to going to somebody and letting them work on you so you can receive and let your body just relax into receiving. It's really key as well. I love getting my body worked on by, like, there are certain practitioners that my body just loves to have work done by. And so having that is really helpful. And then if I'm one of those people for you and you want to test that out, well, just join me and contact me through milicajelenic.com and find my resources over there too, and my different classes and tools. I'd love to connect with you.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. We'll return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.